Well, in the last 3 days, he's published a 3-part series, and he's been going into publicly available databases. We'll leave it at that, but he doesn't want him to close down the sources. The sources, the information itself is public and verified. It's just that where Wayne's getting this, because they've been very secretive about clamping down his college records, high school records, passport, birth certificate, all of this. Wayne doesn't want him to shut down the source of this because he's digging through it right now and finding even more, and is scheduled to go down there again today. I'll just leave it at that. But the story of Obama, all in the company, in 3 parts. We've got it linked up at Infowars.com. We've got the blurb written above it with some of the history of other presidents being intelligence assets. Bombshell, Barack Obama conclusively outed as CIA creation. And I've seen a lot of this info open source before, but Wayne's put it all together in one spot and found a lot of new data. And it's got to be a 25-page report, but I suggest you read it all. But here he is to go over it with us in the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes and to give us some new intel he's gotten. You can find it all and new developments at WayneMadsenReport.com, and we have it linked up at Infowars.com. He's getting so much traffic, it's barely staying up this morning. It's off and on. That's why we've got this key report. We're thankful for him letting us mirror it at Infowars.com. Wayne, congratulations on your in-depth investigation. You've been in Chicago for weeks. You've been all over the country investigating this guy, and you've gotten some powerful info.
Oh, thanks, but I feel somewhat chagrined. I think all this information is what should have come out during the presidential campaign, not on a sitting president of the United States. And I really think that myself and other members of the media, I'm not counting the corporate media. They never touch these stories, but we really were remiss, I think, in delving into this guy's past during the campaign, which is what we've done with every other previous presidential candidate. And for some reason, I guess we all got hooked on the hopium with Obama.
Well, Bush was so bad, I don't blame people for wanting to get hooked on the hopium, but I saw his advisors and Wall Street doubling down on him. I knew McCain was bad, but clearly he was the establishment's heir apparent, and so that's why I saw through him.
Oh, absolutely. And now we hear today that one of the Kagan boys has been hired on as an advisor to General Petraeus. So what's the difference? We had Obama speaking at the CIA headquarters telling them, how much he appreciates what they do and don't worry about the investigations. Where he should have been kicking them for what they did during the renditioning in the secret prisons, and now we know about the latest one in Morocco where we turned people over to have them tortured by the Moroccan secret police. So I mean, this is the guy that keeps on giving as long as you're CIA or the Pentagon, and I don't see any change. As a matter of fact, in some respects, I think he's worse.
Well, Wayne, I have to agree with you, unfortunately, because he brought left cover to this and a fresh face, and he's a better teleprompter reader. A lot of people went to sleep over the secret arrest, the expanding wars, the torture, America really losing its soul, and he's been protecting John Yoo and, of course, Alberto Gonzales and Bush feels so safe. 2 months ago, he said, yeah, I ordered torture. I'd do it again.
Oh, absolutely. And his Justice Department is going after Blagojevich again after all
of what we've got. Now, before we go back to Wayne, I want to show people a few news stories that came out this week. Here's Politico. Don't look, birthers. It's Obama's passport. As if his passport means something. Now, this came out on the heels of them shredding and destroying his mother's passport, which would be stamped where he was at what time. When he was born, the evidence shows in Kenya, but we know he gave up his citizenship and became Barry Soetoro, like Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. He became Barry Soetoro and gave up his U.S. citizenship. That is confirmed. That's mainstream news. Okay, and they try to abscond that evidence by only focusing on Kenya. And I'm not bashing those that do. It's just this is smoking gun. Now, here it is. Oops, Obama mama, passport destroyed. State Department claims records gone for Stanley Ann Dunham prior to 1968, around the time that old Barack Obama was born in 1961. Continuing, White House offers glimpse of President Obama's passport documents, shows birthplace is Hawaii. So they're desperate. They won't put out the original passport, just a receipt of it, okay, just a slip, not the real passport. And now they're doing this at the same time they destroyed her passport. Very, very suspicious. So I wanted to just point out they've been involved in a cover-up. Wayne Madsen, go over your groundbreaking report, the new stuff you've discovered, and other things you haven't put in Part 1 or Part 2 or Part 3. You've got the floor. Wayne Madsen, go over it.
Well, I started this investigation by looking at the company that President Obama went to work for after he graduated from Columbia, and it was Business International Corporation, and that was a company that had close ties to the CIA. They used some of their quote-unquote journalists as CIA cover officers overseas. Now, in his book, Obama says, I went to work for a company in Manhattan after I graduated from Columbia, but it was the company, the CIA. It wasn't a company, and he was very disingenuous with about talking about that. This was a company that had access to some of the biggest, most powerful people in the world, including Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin, Generalissimo Franco of Spain, and obviously this company did outreach to a lot of leftist leaders in places like Africa and Asia and other parts of the world, including Latin America. And then I started looking at, of course, his mother and her time in Indonesia especially, but also Pakistan. It turns out she was working not only for the Ford Foundation on microfinancing projects, and I have information that states that one of the CIA economic officers at the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta worked on the same exact project while she was there, financing, microfinancing for these farmers and artisans in Central Java. Now, Ann Dunham Soetoro takes her son at 7 years old into Indonesia following the CIA-inspired coup. 2 years later, Lolo Soetoro's stepfather was called back by General Suharto from Hawaii, where he met Obama's mother in '65, but prior to the CIA coup, and he went to work for the Suharto's army. Now, that they killed an estimated up to 1 million Indonesian citizens, a lot of ethnic Chinese, and also reported members of the Indonesian Communist Party. So this is the environment she takes 7-year-old Barack Obama. I mean, who in their right mind would do that unless you were, being assigned to work for the agency in those days? I also looked at Barack Obama Sr. Now, he was airlifted. It was called Project Airlift Africa. It was funded by a $100,000 grant from the Joseph P. Kennedy Foundation. But that's because Tom Amboya, who was a Kenyan nationalist leader, pro-U.S., tied in with the CIA, decided he didn't want to take State Department money because that would look too suspicious. So it looks like they laundered some of this money through the Joseph P. Kennedy Foundation in 1960. Now, remember, John Kennedy's running for president then, so that's building up his national security credentials, helping out the agency. And the reason for bringing these 230 students from Kenya, Tanganyika, and other soon-to-be independent British colonies in Eastern and Southern Africa was to compete with the Soviets and Chinese, who were training their own leaders in these newly independent nations, and it was clearly to gain influence with these new governments. So
just to interrupt briefly, the bottom line historically is the British are the masters of this, but other governments have done it. That's why you had to be American-born to be president in the Constitution, because at the time our country was being founded, they had problems with the Austrians sending their people into other European countries during the democratic revolutions that were developing to try to put their people into power there. And so this story of intelligence agencies pre-positioning people to put them into political power so they control nations is extremely old. And we also know that Kenya in the 40s and 50s into the 60s was the admitted declassified global model of covert takeovers and was the main base of operations, aside from South Africa and Rhodesia, for control of the African continent.
Well, right. And we have to remember, the same year the same year that Barack Obama Sr. was brought over in the CIA Airlift Africa project is the same year that the Soviet Union opened the Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow for the sole purpose of training people from these third world nations, these newly independent countries. So this petition, we of course didn't have a Patrice Lumumba University, but we ferreted these students among various universities around the United States, and Barack Obama Sr. was the first African student to attend the University of Hawaii, and he meets Obama's mother in where? A language class. So
okay, your phone was cutting out a bit. He meets his mother. Again, Barack Obama Sr. meets Mama, and of course her daddy, you're going to get into, has connections to the agency. He meets her where?
In a Russian language class at the University of Hawaii. Now, this is the height of the Cold War. The only people who would be taking Russian in a place like Hawaii, which was like a military, I mean, the military was all over Hawaii, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, would be obviously people who were involved in some way, shape, or form with intelligence, or were being recruited into intelligence. And now, Stanley Armour Dunham, the grandfather, there's a photo of him welcoming Barack Obama Sr. to the airport in Hawaii. Now, we were told that they met for the first time at the Russian language class. It's clear now, this furniture salesman, we were told Stanley Armour Dunham's grandfather was in the furniture business. It seems like he was in much, much more than just selling furniture.
Incredible. And then, of course, you have her then being projected into the big foundation under Tim Geithner's father. I mean, just on every side, you've got all these connections in the report. And then he's got a fake name. He's changing his name. We don't know where he's born. He comes from nowhere to become president. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming.
Well, and then we have the curious case of his grandmother, Madeline Dunham, who died 2 days before Obama was elected president in 2008. The Obama campaign apparently didn't want her giving any interviews to the press. Maybe they were afraid she'd be like Newt Gingrich's mother with the Katie Couric interview and slip up and say something that would have embarrassed them. But she was one of the first female vice presidents at the Bank of Hawaii, and now, lo and behold, we find out that that bank was used by the CIA front company in Honolulu to make payments to these dictators in Asia like Suharto and Marcos in the Philippines and Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek in Taiwan and the Pak Chung-hee in South Korea and the Liberal Democrats in Japan.